introduce Phil, I'd just like to say, if we can listen to Phil speak, hold on to our questions until he's finished, because some people are anxious to get away. I know that a lot of you will have personal stories that you want to share, but if we can just hold on until the end and let him speak. This is a really hot potato at the moment. We're very grateful that Phil has come down to speak to us in person, and I hope that you will all listen to what he has to say. Phil.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. Good afternoon everybody, my name is Phil Lightowl, I'm Head of Public Transport for Kent County Council, which really means that as well as looking after Kent's supporting buses and local bus network and getting kids to school on the mainstream buses and old people's bus passes and the Gravesend Tilbury ferry, my team manage and procure transport for SEN and social care. So my job is, if you like, the delivery of the actual physical transport. So I buy the transport, I manage the transport, I don't do transport eligibility, so it might be worth me just quickly explaining the process. Within education there is a team called transport eligibility, and that's when obviously you finally got through an EHCP and you make the transport application, it goes to that team and they assess the eligibility on a whole range of criteria, and they liaise with the SEN team. And at the point where they say your child is eligible for transport, it comes to me and my team, and who's just left, who's sick. There usually is about 7 people and a manager called Shane, and they do all the procurement management side. So some of you probably, some parents have probably spoken to Shane or a member of my team in relation to your transport need. So the nicest way of explaining the process is that when you put in your transport application and they say to you you're eligible for transport, it probably comes across that that's it, it'll be sorted in days, no problems. It's sorted, isn't it? I don't mind saying it, I wish it was genuinely as easy as that. What happens is they come over to us, and this year, probably, I don't mind putting my hand up and saying, it's probably been one of our worst summers for my team, because through a number of factors, a lot of requests have come late to us. So you might have put gone in eligibility in April, some of those might not get to us until June, July, I've even seen some in August. And we've had, since the beginning of August, about 850 different transport requests. We have another 350 still outstanding, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail. We have another 250 still at eligibility, which we're holding at the moment. We've asked them to hold them there just to try and clear the backlog, in fairness to us, if we can. So when they come to us, they come through a central system, they go on our management information system, and all that's the boring bit. But the lady, I shouldn't call them the ladies, it sounds awful, doesn't it? But Penny knows what I'm talking about. They will sit down, and in some cases, if you're very, very lucky, there's a taxi going past your door, it meets all your needs, there's space on it, bang, allocated. So for many clients, in fairness, that there are times, I know it's hard to believe because there's usually all the horrible stories you hear, for quite a lot of people, if you're lucky, they can get, and they can knock them out very quickly. It might just be a phone call to the taxi operator, might be an email, they're cleared. Where we can't do that, we have to go, we are forced by, as an authority, all public authorities, we have to go out to public tendering, and we have a system, a framework if you like. It's all online, all our supplies on it, and we bang out a tender document. Now normally, we like to give them 5 days to respond. We really do. Sometimes we can't, but we try and give them 5 days. It goes out for tender, and it's got to be the lowest one, it comes at the lowest price, but that meets the requirement. So in that tender document it will say sole occupancy vehicle, it will detail in very brief terms any particular needs, where they're going to and from, and the one that comes back with the lowest price gets signed off and transport goes in. We've got 5,000 children on taxis across Kent, about 14,491 contracts issued as we speak today. That's a lot of taxis, a lot of minibuses running that we've procured in Kent already, and we are above our pre-pandemic levels. So we've already gone way above our numbers than we normally do. But you'll have seen on Kent Online there was a letter that went out to MPs, and very helpfully the press went and published it for us. We have hit barriers in the last 2 to 3 weeks finding suppliers. So it's around, big issue for us at the moment is around passenger assistance. So where we're going out to the marketplace looking for passenger assistance, they're not there. But there's about 600 of them in use, but the number that was pre-pandemic are clearly not there. And I suspect, in all fairness, it's a range of issues. From many would have been doing it as a retirement job, many are now a bit cautious about doing that role, or they've had medical conditions. People's lifestyles and expectations have changed, so we've seen the drop off in passenger assistance. So across Kent, taxi operators are putting out calls saying, come and be a passenger assistant, come and do this, and we're hoping that's going to start bringing people in, because we are really, really struggling. So at this moment in time, my team are effectively prioritising the remainers that are remaining to be allocated on anybody who doesn't need a passenger assistant, and their time in the system. So if you've been in the system a long time, because we can see that when you went into eligibility, and then can we get you on transport without having to put you through with a passenger assistant? And if we can, and we got somebody, and we do get lucky still getting ones without needing passenger assistance, we'll get you on transport. It is quite a process. It sounds quite a quick process, but it can take up to an hour and a half, 2 hours, even to a simple allocation, but we're working through them. Our problem with passenger assistance is particularly hard for East Kent. So if there's any parents here who are in East Kent, so in the Dover, Folkestone areas, parts of Canterbury, into Thanet, we're hitting the buffers at the moment, at this moment in time. Now, from our perspective, I don't mind being very open and honest and saying to you all, it's hard for me to say to you, we are sorry, even if it doesn't get put in the grievance statement. I'm sorry, because to me, it'd be much nicer if we could get your transport arranged really, really fast. I don't know, and I'm going to be open and honest and say this to the group, I don't know when I can get passenger assistance. So the passenger assistant for Kent must have a fully enhanced DBS check. Once they've got that, and we're happy that they can work, they can go get a badge, they go through a training session. And as we speak today, we've got a training course at Aylesford, and the first thing I did when I got in the office was go, oh, did they all turn up? All 10 did, so I was really excited. I never asked them which part of the county they were from, because that looks just a bit too eager, but it sounds bad, doesn't it, when you say 10 people, but if there's a new passenger assistance, that's potentially 10 more vehicles, and that's more people. So as a team, Shane, my manager, Shane Bushell, is really focused, and the ladies and one guy who works with them are really focused on getting students allocated, but they are hitting the buffers. So we're going to the market, we're getting no bids for work, particularly passenger assistance, and also what's been happening is they're handing them back. So an operator will bid for it, somebody's promised to go and work for them, they bid for it, they win it, they either hand it back before they started, or they hand it back after a week because it's not quite what the person thought. We've had that, you know, they've done a week with it with a child in the vehicle. It's not what I thought. They give notice, and we have to go back through the whole process of procuring. So, for us, it can take, if you're lucky, depending on how many requests we've had in a day, if there's transport, it can turn around for a parent in a couple of days. It's been quite a nice experience. If the taxi drivers do what we tell them, they ring you up and they're pleasant and they do all the bits we teach them and talk to them about. It's a good experience. For some of you, it can be a bit mixed. It can be weeks, it can be very stressful, it can be not the experience that you were expecting. And for some at the moment, you know, hands up, and I don't mind saying it, it is incredibly stressful for you all because you're still waiting and you might have been going through the whole process with KCC, I don't know, potentially for months. And all I can do on behalf of KCC is say to you that we have got plenty of slots to train passenger assistants. We're doing plenty of DBS checking of them. We're ringing operators every day. I had shown yesterday ringing every operator across East Kent. We are going to look to do a re-tender of the network probably for January to try and release some more resources out. So we're going to, through a clever process, something using a bit of technology, we're going to look at releasing resources, particularly where it's got passenger assistance, because the problem isn't for us just this year, you know this as well. The problem is the demand is generally quite frightening for us. It is in serious numbers, and if we don't start releasing resource, we will get to a point in the market we can't provide. So, you know, I'm being open and honest about that. You know, hopefully, I'm hoping that furlough hundreds of people. If you know anybody, anyone on a passenger assistant, anyone who can travel on a bus, put your hands up now. You know, we're hoping in the coming weeks we get more people, we get more operators back, and the ones that have been waiting the longest, we can honestly, we can then get you sorted out. Which is why I wrote, not probably my best letter to be fair, I wrote you all a letter that I'm waiting, saying I'm ever so sorry, it's really quite a bit of an issue at the moment, and I did say that we will cover transport expenses, and then afterwards when my finance people had finished devouring me, reminded me of the process they have to go through to actually set them up and do them, and I was kindly put them on the website and the form. So we will cover transport costs. I know it doesn't, if anyone says it to me, it doesn't make the situation wonderful, it doesn't make it easy, but as a temporary measure, while I'm trying to do things, it's the best we can do. So from our side, we've got some plans, we've got some things we're working on. I don't deal with eligibility, so when I do Q&A, I can't tell you how they'd look at the forms. Shame probably because I should have brought them, you know, really. But I can explain what happens when it gets to us and some of maybe the common issues around transport. Did I miss anything, Penny? You know this as good as anybody. Yeah. And at that point, I think I've got 15 minutes based on the schedule. Does anybody have any questions? Can I take first?
Yeah, I've got two hats. I'm a family support worker but also a parent. But for me it's been communication. I've rung up on behalf of parents, I've rung up for myself to, I'm not sure if it's yours, I think I got through to education because you couldn't get through to transport. Yeah. And was told numerous times that transport was going to be sorted in the next few days. That went on for 3 weeks. It was taking 4 hours out of mine and my husband's days doing the different 2 children we have on transport. And finally, it got to my husband being given a warning at work about taking exceptional leave for somebody that I have to say was above and beyond in, I don't know if it was your department or education, and went, yeah, I'll get some answers for you, and actually called me back. Other than that, it was like 5 or 6 phone calls a day trying to just get an answer to how long it was going to be so we could tell our employers how long we would be taking this time out of work. And then when we got transport, they didn't even have our details. they had the wrong phone number for us somehow, and they had the wrong address. The address they had was 10 miles difference. And eventually they agreed to do the transport, and they were really good, I have to say, but they were given someone else's details, not ours.
So you can have, and that's what you've got, as I say, a small team, and they're spending a lot of time ringing out. So when contact centre, if you're ringing the contact centre, they'll try and cut you through, but with the volume of calls coming through, and we limit the numbers that are on the phones available to try and give others a chance to get through the work. With the home groups, it's a nightmare. You know,
But if I'd been given what you've just said, I would have had a lot more understanding. Just to be told,
and I think
can't tell you anything,
yeah,
or we're getting there,
and
or even like I was told in 2 days you'll get transport, and that was never going to
no,
happen.
unless you speak to the actual coordinator that's got your request, and they probably would be the only person who can give you an honest answer. What happens then is sometimes the contact centre will go through to Shane and he'll chase people, or he'll come back to you or ring you back, or it gets to me sometimes. Actually, contact centre gets to me. It's quite amazing, really, you know.
It will now, because your name's been on the website.
Well, I don't mind people knowing. I genuinely don't mind people trying to get in touch with me. I really don't. Sometimes you can imagine that, particularly at the moment, I'm quite not always around as much as I'd like to be. But it's hard. This has been one of the things around comms, and it was raised with a parent with me last week. He was really upset, and he said, "Can you just sort?" I'm going to take it away. I'm not sure how I sort it yet, because I think we're going to have something that's GDPR compliant, and we can update easily. And how do we update it? And what can we put on it? What can we do? I'm going to take it away because it's a problem. And this, as I say, it's not us ignoring you. It's not the people you deal with. My transport staff deliberately ignoring you. They do. There's usually 2 on in the mornings, taking the calls, 2 in the afternoon, and they swap over, and that way they can try and get through their own work. One lady, unfortunately, has gone sick, and we've lost another, with the job market being the way it is. So Shane's sort of in there as well in the mix, trying to make it happen. It's not right. I really understand from a parent perspective. You always want to know what's happening, and people telling you 2 days when they haven't really a clue.
Yeah.
It doesn't help, does it? So I think for us, it's something we've got to think about. How it's probably going to take me a good 7 months, knowing the way KCC and IT work. It's going to take me 6-7 months, but we'll have something better. Maybe not for you as parents this time, but for all the extras next year, we're going to have something better. Can't we, this?
I think if you saw my update on our transport page yesterday, you'll see that I was at quite a high level meeting yesterday regarding transport. And one of the things that was being talked about was trying to come up with some sort of automated email system to keep parents informed throughout the process. And it's not as simple as it sounds. So there is a task and finish group of which I'm part, and we'll be looking at that. And as Phil rightly says, we're not going to solve this problem this year, but Pact have committed to working alongside KCC so that next year, hopefully, we're not faced with this scenario again, provided we don't get another pandemic or fuel shortage.
I'm going to be a bit controversial here, I'm sorry. 15 years we do special needs transport, and it's always a problem. I don't want to go backwards, but it hasn't always been better in that time by what I'm hearing today. And it's the impact on the families that you cannot appreciate unless you are one of those families, because economically a lot of these families are affected already before they already cannot get their child to their place of education. So there are so many other things that happen because of that child not being able to be safely transported to school. I know there's a lot of things out of your control at the moment, but there's been a lot of things wrong with special needs transport for years.
And I did raise that yesterday because I had my own personal experience at those 8 years.
And I've had the worst, I really have, but that's not what I'm here to talk about.
No.
But I don't think we can keep saying that it's out of our control. Certain things are now, but it's never been a good service.
No, I think there's a couple of points to come back. On the point around, I think what's very different, and probably the number of us have fought this battle for a long time, is getting quite a lot of people in KCC to accept actually numbers are going through the roof, when they were doing quite a lot of looking down at the ground and saying, no, demand's going down. They've now accepted that whole point. There's a piece around comms particularly, because just being truthful and open and honest, we just couldn't have the people and the phone lines to deal with it, and they still would be able to get in and see all the detail. We do understand, genuinely in my teams, we do understand what you go through. Some of my staff that deal with this area directly have their own SEN children. My daughter I didn't go through the HCP process, thankfully. She had portage, but I never went through HCP. So, and she has a few other issues, and she probably is a little bit at times. But anyway, that aside, we do understand, and I do come and meet parents, usually when it's all gone really horribly wrong, I come out and try and put it right. We do understand what it's like for you. We do understand that sometimes it's about work, it's about your other children, your own commitments, your own child wants to be in school, they want to be in school. There's a whole range of things we know that happens. So for us, key things, comms, we've invested in a piece of IT software that's about planning, but based on need and working with schools and trying to get, because one of the problems we have is sometimes the forms that come over, you mentioned the address piece. Classic example is if the form comes over wrong or we don't get enough information. So I've had cases where I've had wrong address, I've had wrong need. When I've gone back and checked the need, it's a real medical need, it's not just a minor need. So these are all things, if we're going to get comms right, we're going to get the planning process right. There's a piece going on, alluded to, within the SEN team themselves, that they get these transport forms really right, and we really do need them right, and we've been trying to do this for a number of years. So, will it be superb? I don't know what superb would look like, but I know for one thing, it will be different next year than this year, when people are now listening. And we do understand.
I think I'd say superb looks like every child receiving their education from the first day of term.
Sometimes, because it hasn't been fit for purpose. So not even thinking superb, I think you've got to think, can we transport these children to school on time, in a safe way, stay there, because if you do that, you've done a great job.
Yeah, I think for us, you probably heard this yesterday, one of the things for us would be all your requests, every single transport request, arrive to us. We always said this, we know about this, why can't we have them at the end of April? You see? And they came in one big lump, not as they do, and I assure you, they've been coming through August every day in batches, and they're still coming, because, well, they're not going to help at the moment.
Already know where they're going, because some of them, they've been allocated their school recovery effectively. So do you get those all in enough, or are these just ones that get any actually wrong?
No, this is part of this task and finish. The task and finish group has come out of a bit of a meeting that we had with the SEN teams where we said there's a problem here, and there's still way up demand up the pipe, and we just can't keep going like this, because it really does start, it starts impacting, it's wrong and everything, and we went through all these issues, and this is where the group, and thankfully Pact are involved in it as well, is looking at all these issues, and hopefully in the coming months we'll start to see those benefits. Have they?
Can I just ask something you mentioned about you revealing it all at the end of December, January, or something? Just what really worried me is the thought, are you going to look at what you've got and try and shove more children together into taxis that already exist? Speaking as someone who I can only just about get in, and I've got an appeal going on about still occupancy, and I know that you're to do with that criteria, but just, it does worry me at the thought of potentially having, in order to I can understand people wanting to save costs, but it's the lack of joy, I think, with education. It's taking you years to get right to school, and then transport can totally
Yeah, no, this
make it all fall apart.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, the cost of a good transport will then save my child dropping out of that school and having to go to an even more expensive specialist school. Like, just.
no, I think,
And then like, it's not saying the harm.
well, it started out, I think, in lots of heads about saving costs, but the reality is every year the number of children travelling is hundreds, so this isn't, I'd say this is now basically about trying to make sure we can actually carry everybody into the future. What's slightly, with the benefit of technology, what's different about this is it takes a whole range of parameters around the child, and it does what Shane can do for a school. It usually takes him 6 weeks and a lot of conversations. This, call it the machine. It takes all these requirements about a child, and it looks at each child and it plans about who can share with who, if they can. If they can't share with anybody, it says they can't share.
So you speak to the school
then-
about it?
Yeah, so the whole process will be, is about, and the schools have been contacted already, is a big spreadsheet that says, with a number of criteria on yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and that will go in alongside what we already know, and it plans itself, it plans by, it looks who can share based on their needs. So for example, let's see, if they say at the school, a child can't have anyone sat next to them, then it'll put on its planning mind, it says child can't sit next to another person. So if it puts a vehicle together, it goes, it must have a spare seat. Is it front, behind, is it to the side? It does all those pieces. It then takes who can share, in the simplest terms, and then it looks at Kent Road, dreadful now, and it goes, what is really a journey time? So we've been doing a lot of work about what are real journey times, because in its mind it looks at things, it goes, oh, there's an hour there, and it isn't an hour, we all know it's about 2 hours in reality. So it then builds it in, and over time, if it does what we've been looking at over when we trialled it, it will release resource. It should be better. We shouldn't get so many of the issues we get where you get on wrong transport or you didn't get the right transport in the first place. It should be better. I do hear the point about journey times, and we do sometimes we put them on and it doesn't work, and I have to break it up because I did one 2 weeks ago, it wasn't working. Couldn't get a student to start school. They were the last pickup. They were the last pickup, and really the way it was working, because of the traffic, it just didn't work. So hands up. Sometimes we get it right. Sometimes it's awful. We get it right mess, and it's just traffic that does that. Lady at the back.
Yeah. So from my experience and my best friend's experience this year is that they've had problems with individuals with the eligibility team. So obviously I know that's not related to you, but who takes responsibility of that? Because last year my forms apparently were lost, when actually I had a response from KCC, which I then sent over to the caseworker to obviously prove to her that I have actually submitted an application. My best friend had the exact same this year. So, some of these people that are applying back in February, March, April time are then getting lost until July, which might be the reason why you're not getting them until August.
No.
So someone needs to take responsibility for that side of it as well.
The task and finish group will address this. What we do is we don't call it membership, but we log the date your request for grants with us, but we log the date. It's been ineligibility because we can see when it arrived and we keep.
But then, like for instance, my case, they said they lost it completely. So
yeah, and then of course you'll complain, and sometimes miraculously it appears. I don't know how that happens, you said.
Unfortunately for my friend this year, they haven't found theirs. So they had to reapply in July. So now they can't get their son to school at all.
If what will often happen is where that's picked up is they will ring Shane, sometimes in a bit of a panic, saying we'll drop one here, can you sort this out as a thing. So if they pick it up and they know that it's their fault, they will align.
Yeah.
I'm hoping with the task and finish group, it's seamless from, I can't promise you about the EHCP process, but from when you get the EHCP, we want to make it as seamless as we can. We've got to find a way to talk to you and and make it happen. I'm banking on furlough releasing hundreds of people who want to be passenger assistants, and I'm banking on a very cold machine. It's a very, very clever piece of software to do things around the planet to make it better. There'll still be cases, I'll be open and honest, we'll still have cases where we send a taxi and the taxi operator doesn't do exactly what they promised, or they employ somebody who's completely hopeless at doing the thing. We pick those issues up. I have a man who works for me called Tim, who looks after safeguarding, he looks after the operator side. Please take it from me, he's a very miserable gentleman, he's a very down gentleman, he's a very angry gentleman at times. He's very good at telling operators what they've done wrong. So we have a penalty system for operators. If they do wrong, they get penalised. If they do too many penalties, they're gone off the system. In terms of drivers and passenger assistants, if they're a safeguarding risk, and the laddos tell us that's it, boom, they're off. And their badges, for the whole account are removed. And sometimes, in extremes, if it's not a safeguarding issue, but they're just genuinely unpleasant, I will have them taken off. So we do get this. We get this with operators. They don't always do what they say they do. They tell lies, unbelievably. They tell us lies when we go back to them. But we do get to the bottom of them, and he is very, well, he's a doubting, miserable bugger at times, and he does deal with them. We also do, just so you're aware, all taxi operators, they might tell you they do get an induction session where he sits with them, he tells them the good bit, which is that the bits they're interested in are usually how quickly do you pay, where do I send the invoice, but he goes through the whole thing. You locked him out. He will go through it with taxi operators, he will tell them all about the challenges for the future, what it's really like taking an SEN child to school, because some of them just think it's about pounds, they don't always realise, and he takes them through it. And the same with the induction that they've been doing today, they get a piece from a guy who teaches them all about restraining a wheelchair, a standard style wheelchair, key things you should expect. It might not always be nice on the bus. Sometimes it's wonderful, isn't it? But I know when it's not. I know how it all works. So we go through that. So they do get a little bit of training in that respect. And probably the last one for anyone about passenger assistance is, if your child's got a really complex medical need, a very, very complex medical need, we often can't get personnel. It's not for want of trying, but for certain, we go back to the NHS. I'm going to pin this back to the NHS, it's my thing. We will go back and say, can we have a training course? Could we have someone to train somebody? And they won't do it. They won't recommend a course. And from my perspective, some of the complex needs, you have to at that point say, if I can't find a training provider, someone who'll show them how to physically do it, I can't provide, and we can't always do. So, and we've had this before where this has been raised about complex needs. We have gone back to the NHS. We don't want them to do it, we just want us to tell us who can do it. So that's another thing I think we'll go into your task and finish with.
Parents now provide that activities. Can they look after these children day in, day out?
Trouble, I'd love to take that. Problem is I've got to take a legal responsibility. So if a PI does something, God forbid, hurts a child, saying that mum or dad trained them, doesn't always stack up. I know, in terms of mums and dads, we can, if you wanted to go and transport your child, and if you wanted to go, and if you were waiting for transport and you said you wanted to go, and we can get you dropped down and all those. We do lots of things. I can be very flexible about what I can do for parents to try and make things better. And there are some mums and dads who do go with their children because they're the only ones, you'll know this, they're the only ones who can keep them calm and look after them. We do that. So we can work around it, but when it comes to the training side, let someone else. Yeah.
Can I just add a positive note? I had 3 years of horrendous transport and different taxis and this sort of stuff. The last 3 years, I've had 2 different suppliers. The one I've got now, this is the 2nd year. The supplier are outstanding in keeping me informed of any changes. The driver and the personal assistant are absolutely amazing and very supportive, and he does now share. But I've always notified from day one, this is the young person, it's going to be sharing young person, I can't know the young person. Yeah, that's right. But they are so accommodating and they are trained. And if the driver can't do the job, then they always make sure that it's either one or the other. Either the PA is there or the driver, so that there's continuity, because change, a lot of our young people can't deal with change and that would throw them out. So, you know, I do applaud. I did experience horrors, but for the last 3 years it's been amazing.
And you will have good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some great ones, and we sit and talk to them, we go out and meet them, and I know quite a few of them off the top of my head, because there are a couple around the county where I've got some really hard cases that would upset the parents to the point that they're just in total despair. You know, I'll pick up my phone and say, you know, can you do me this, because I know I can trust them. And this is how it works, so it's good to know, but there are horror stories, I do.
When they came out, some workers before to me in the garden, and you know, trying to...
They're told to.
Yeah, they are supposed to.
Tim tells them, you should go out there and you should meet the parents before and you should do this, and it's not, as I say, some of them come in thinking it's big money, and it is big money for them. Don't let them con you that they're doing this out of the goodness of their heart. And you just say to them, go out. And if you can't go out, find another way. But you must make contact. And it is disappointing when they don't do it, but you just catch up with them. Let it back.
So when's the best time to put in the renewal? So like my son's due for renewal in September, so when's the best time for me to put it in?
Due for a renewal in the sense of?
Taxi, for the taxi.
Is it because he's transitioning?
Yes.
This is, I don't mind saying this. When this drives us mad, and it's been driving us mad for 5 years, and we've never understood why, but now they're listening in the other half of KCC. Why is it when you transition, you've got to reapply? So we're saying, stop reapplying, but we're having a bit of an internal tussle. For us, we know they'll always give transport to 99% on transition. You know, to pretend otherwise is nonsense, because we know what happens. So to us, stop doing it, because it just creates work, and you could just send us them in a massive batch in April.
February, actually.
Yeah, well, in February, we will probably, they still probably sit on them for a while. But for us, we could get all of that, and then bang, 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 it's sorted. So, yeah, I don't...
So what happens then, so like he's got 3 years transport, which is only run out, which is up.
So is it next year?
It's next year, yeah.
Is it, so you're transitioning next year?
Yeah, and his transport, they've done it for 3 years, and obviously he's moving school.
Well, I'm hoping that by the time you get to that point next year, we've got rid of all this really nonsense, and it's just a smooth, seamless process. In terms of contract, that is a good point. Contracts have usually a 3-year life. We can extend.
So what happens then when that runs out in 3 years, and so like, for example, if he was still at the same school, would he extend it, or would I have to reapply?
He'll do. Well, I'm hoping you will have to reapply going forward, and that's one of the big things we're pushing for. And I know.
Yeah, because at transition, the point we're making is that the child doesn't change, the place you're taking them to changes. It's the same child, you're just taking them somewhere else. And we also talked about problems where many of the special schools now have satellites. Some of them are a huge distance. If you look at 5 Acre Wood in Maidstone, that's in Luton. They have a satellite in Snodland. If they make an internal change to move the child to a different point, how do transport know that's happened?
We don't sometimes.
And that's one of the things
The school has to tell them then that they're moving to different...
for a different location within their setting.
And if they put on the form, they put the descriptor, they don't sometimes put that it's the satellite, they don't put actually where it is. So we've had cases where, we had one last week where a taxi driver took them to what we thought was the address, and of course the school goes, well no, it's 10 miles away, what are you brought the kid here for? Taxi driver in fairness said, oh, I'll take the kid up there. Wasn't a hassle. We should be able to keep that piece of being picked up by task and finish. There's lots of things in fairness. It's not great at the moment, not just for SEN, it's not great for transport at the moment, but there's lots of things working with Pact and our colleagues, we could probably make it so much easier and make it a lot more of a seamless process for you.
Vicky, can I just say that picking up on Siobhan's point earlier about economics, I did challenge yesterday on why parents are having to wait 6 weeks for a refund, and pointing out that some parents aren't in an economic position to wait 6 weeks for a refund. So hopefully that's something that's going to be pursued.
Couldn't look on that one, you have to go through, there's lots of processes, as I say. But yeah, it's not always easy. But now, in all fairness, I don't want to say this, but Pact now know where I hide and where I can be found. When you catch me on an email or on a phone call, more than willing, parents have got, I know it's been recorded, so if parents want to ask queries, they can cut out back transport, they can cut, I don't mind answering, as I said, with the fuel shortage and bus drivers being short and all the other things, I'm a little bit pushed at the moment, but I always will go back and I will always go back and respond. And I really am ever so sorry for anybody who is still waiting. We are trying our best. The people that are dealing with it are ringing around constantly, day in, day out. I'm hoping it will get better. I can't give you time scales. I'm just hoping that over the coming weeks it will get better. Recruitment wise, a little piece from me to all parents. We're at the end of the chain. We haven't gone through your battles. We don't know your whole history of how you fought to get where you are. We're not blocking, we're not judgmental, we're just the people at the end of the chain trying to get transport. So please, I know sometimes people vent that, my staff, they vent it out, and I can understand that, but then they're the ones in the tears left behind from it, so they are all trying. It's a one piece out. I can apologise, I can say what we're going to try and do for the better in the future, but I'm thinking of the people that work for me. Some of them are parents of SEN children, they know what you're going through, so when you vent, it triggers sometimes for some of them their own experiences. There's a couple like that, so we do understand, but I know it's frustrating. Just if you can, don't vent. By all means, talk it all through, but yeah, they're just right at the end of the chain. Did that help?
I think it did, yes. Do we think that helped, Ellie? Yeah.
I think you just have to have transparency.
Yeah, I think it does, yeah.
So you don't have these regularly.
Well, we do meet professionals regularly where you could go out to different areas with our quadrant ambassadors.
Is that meeting parents?
Yeah.
I'll come along.
Okay. We'll hold Phil to that.
We'll bring Shane. We'll bring Shane as well.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that, wasn't
I
it?
think it's just us knowing more, like lots of processes we go through every organisation, sometimes you just feel so like banging your head against the wall, you don't even realize you don't know what's happening, or if someone actually says to you, right, okay, I know that you're going to this, we're just going to do this stage next, or just knew roughly where you were, or just something. Sometimes the communication is so appalling, it just raises your own anxiety and your own feelings.
Today I'm in Ellsford, tomorrow I'm in Ellsford, and then I'm looking back at home, but you know what now I look like, there's contact details, I will, and if... Well, funny enough, I've got to talk fueling at 3 o'clock, and I will disappear, but no, you know where I am now, and we'll work together, and I'll come out and talk to parents as best I can, or even if you want to do something virtually, then...
Well, if we just